This is On Assignment. Hello and welcome to our program, bringing you the stories behind the stories. I'm Imran Siddiqui.
And I'm Alex Villarreal. Coming up, thousands of Burmese refugees in Thailand will soon have to move again. We'll find out why from our reporter in the region.
Transparency International publishes its biggest ever survey on global corruption.
The rolling classroom, bringing science to children in rural India by train.
And how a special kind of boat is helping women fighting breast cancer.
We're going on assignment with the Voice of America right now. Deadly violence between Buddhists and Muslims in Burma's Rakhine state continues. Some 2,000 minority Rohingya Muslims have fled to neighboring Thailand to escape attack, but a deadline for their temporary stay there ends soon.
The Rohingya have lived in Burma for decades but are denied citizenship there and regarded as illegal immigrants from Bangladesh. Now reports have surfaced suggesting they're also being mistreated in Thailand. Reporter Steve Sanford spoke to some of the Rohingya about their plight and shared what he learned with On Assignment's Philip Alexio. Let's start with some of Steve's report.
Since January, nearly 2,000 people claiming to be Rohingyas fleeing sectarian violence in Burma have been apprehended and detained by Thai authorities. Denied citizenship in their own country and desperate to escape persecution, many are vulnerable to exploitation. Ahmed Tiliman was held captive in the Thai jungle with a group of fellow Rohingya by traffickers who brought him from Burma. He was released after his relatives in Malaysia paid $1,500 for his freedom. There's roughly 800,000 Rohingya living in Rakhine State. A lot of them have been living there for generations.
Who's taking them on these boats? And how bad are the conditions on the boats? And how far and how long are these trips?
These trips can last for weeks on the high seas. They're cramped boats, a lot of rickety old boats that these people are cramped into. Amahai Aricha from Sitwe says she fled to sea after soldiers shot her two sons.
There was no water on the boat and we were desperate. Some people passed out, others vomited. I want to die here. I don't want to go back. I have no family left in Sitwe. They've all been killed.
In recent years, boatloads of mostly male economic migrants from Bangladesh and Burma have made their way down the coast in hopes of reaching predominantly Muslim Malaysia. This year, with the escalation of violence in Rakhine State, more women and children are making the precarious journey. The brokers are often ruthless. They charge a set fee for them, and they get picked up by Thai authorities. They get mixed up with criminal elements in Thailand as well. So it's not a pretty picture. Despite condemnation from human rights groups after footage like this was aired, conditions for the men remains unchanged. But mounting media reports implicating Thai security in the trafficking of some Rohingya seems to have gotten the attention of top officials.
I know these are very crowded places. That is why we are going to expand the new center for them to stay. The new area will be more of a waiting camp. We will have a doctor and medical treatment available for them.
Most of the violence has been targeting the Rohingya, which are basically an ethnic group in Burma that haven't been recognized since 1982. There was a Citizenship Act implemented by the Burmese regime, basically stripping them of their nationality and their citizenship.
And what was the reason behind that?
Good question. There's been racial tension between the two groups that's been going on for decades. The Buddhists are strongly nationalist, I guess, and perhaps they saw the Rohingya as a threat. There's been a lot of ethnic tension between the Buddhist Burmese and the other ethnic groups within the country as well.
Yeah, so is this tension more ethnic discrimination, or is it more religious, or a combination of both?
I think it would be a combination of both. It's sectarian violence that's been occurring. It originated years ago, but in June, there were attacks in Rakhine State on the Rohingya population. Since that time, the attacks have expanded to the Muslim sectors of Burma. A lot of anti-Islamic propaganda that has been instigated by certain groups in Burma.
What is your personal experience like when you're talking to these people? They don't really have anywhere to go. Seems like nobody wants them.
Exactly. They're very desperate. Back in Burma, they're being segregated. They're put into IDP camps far away from the towns. I was there last November, and things have gotten a lot worse in terms of the weather. The rainy season has set in, so there's a lot of areas, a lot of camps that are underwater right now. There has been more aid and access delivered into the area, but at the same time, because of the weather, there's going to be a lot more sickness and a lot of health issues, I think. And just, yeah, they're just trying to figure out who will take them.
The Rohingya still struggling to find a place to call home. The United Nations calls the group one of the most persecuted minorities in the world. Our thanks again to reporter Steve Sanford in Thailand.
Well, coming up after the break, we'll chat with Henry Ridgewell in London about the Global Corruption Index. You're watching On Assignment. Transparency International has published what it calls its biggest ever survey on global corruption, covering 107 countries. The survey measures whether corruption has increased and which institutions are considered most corrupt. It also asks if people have paid a bribe in the past 12 months and to whom.
VOA's London reporter Henry Ridgewell has seen and reported on the survey, and he joins us now from London. Henry, thank you so much for joining us. When Transparency International talks about corruption, aside from bribes, what exactly are they measuring?
What they're trying to look at here is who has paid a bribe, who has paid money to access public services and public institutions. So that's what this survey is looking at. It's not about private interactions between citizens and private companies. It's about the sort of thing that you should be getting for free, or that you pay your taxes for, and that you shouldn't have to give a bit of cash or pay someone in any other way to access. So that's what they're trying to get to the root of here.
And Henry, how are people chosen to participate in this survey?
Well, Transparency International is a huge global organization that has several dozens of chapters in different countries across the world. And we're not just talking about corruption here in developing parts of the world. We're talking about Western Europe and the States as well. So they measure it in all these countries. They have staff in all of these different offices and chapters around the world who take this survey and take it to the citizens of the different countries, whether it's by post or whether it's on the phone, and they ask them these basic questions about their interaction with public institutions and whether they've been asked to pay to access them and in any illicit way.
And what do you think was the most surprising or shocking element in the survey?
Well, I think the most depressing element, perhaps, is that there's been no sign of any improvement in corruption, in bribery over the course of the past year. This is a survey that is done every year, and it showed that more than 1 in 4 people around the world, or in these 107 countries in which they conducted the survey, have had to pay a bribe to access public services or institutions. So that's a huge amount. But it does get worse in certain countries. In Sierra Leone and in Liberia, 3 in every 4 people have had to pay a bribe to access public services. So a pretty depressing picture. But it doesn't stop there as well. The institutions that these citizens are supposed to trust to carry out their everyday services, trust in them is really at an all-time low. And that applies not only to many African countries, many Latin American countries and Asian countries, it applies also to many developing countries. So, for example, the building you see behind me here, the Houses of Parliament in London, trust in the people who occupy that building is at an all-time low as well, thanks to scandals over parliamentary expenses. There's a belief that really private interests run the politicians in many countries around the world.
Now, when this type of survey is released, how often do governments actually respond and try to improve conditions?
Speaking to the experts who deal in this field, many times that they simply ignore the surveys, or they I guess try and cover up the results. I think it's left really to the multinational, the global institutions, the UN bodies, the World Bank, to try and use tools like this to try and pressure or at least highlight the problems in these countries and get the public institutions, the politicians to do something about it, because they all emphasize that the only way really that this changes is from the top down. It's from politicians setting an example to the citizens themselves. So be it publishing registers of interest, showing how they raise their money, publishing the financial assets of their family members, their friends, their corporate interests, and so on. And in many cases, that simply does not happen.
All right, Henry, thank you so much for bringing this to our attention. Henry Ridgewell reporting to us from London, here joining us again on Assignment. Well, we're going to take another break now, but still to come, we're hopping on board India's science train. You're watching On Assignment. India's rail system is one of the largest in the world, but it's not just for passengers. The government is using this vast network to provide children in the remotest corners of the country with a moving science classroom.
And the train travels thousands of kilometers each year, stopping at dozens of stations to give young people a hands-on alternative to their usual learning environments. VOA's Aru Pandey went on board and talked about it with On Assignment's Rebecca Ward. Let's take a look.
Raghav Pandya loves science, so much so that he spends 6 months out of the year on this train to help share his passion with youngsters across India.
I am passionate about spreading and popularizing awareness regarding scientific knowledge and kind of mechanisms what are relating and what are surrounding to us.
Back in 2007, India's Prime Minister and President at the time were concerned about what they said was a lack of interest in science, especially at the university level. So they asked the Department of Science and Technology to come up with ideas to basically spark that interest, and they came up with this idea of this train that will travel across India, literally from one corner to the other, and give kids an opportunity to see exhibits and do experiments and kind of spark that interest. And this train is actually made with the help of Germany. It's like 16 air-conditioned train cars that were actually built in Germany and brought over to India. And I think this is going to be the 6th time that it's going around the country, and it's going to welcome, I think it's 10 millionth visitor.
Well, describe where the train goes. I think it really covers a big part of India.
It does. This year it started in April in Delhi, and then it literally right now, I think it's in eastern India, and it's going to be in West Bengal, and it's literally going to go to the far eastern point of India and come all the way down to the south to Tamil Nadu state, and then go up back to the western states of Gujarat and Maharashtra. And it goes to a lot of small towns. I mean, India's railway network is one of the top 5 biggest in the world. And so this is kind of an ingenious way to get to places that, you know, normally probably don't have a museum nearby, or even school buildings with adequate resources.
And did you get a chance to meet any of the kids? How did they feel about the train? Did they seem really engaged?
Absolutely. First of all, I was floored by the number of people. If you see in the video, there's literally hundreds of students who were lined up, and it was so hot outside. It was 115 degrees, and they were lined up outside just to get a chance to walk through the train. And once they got inside, I mean, their eyes were huge. They were taking in everything. There's videos, there's interactive exhibits, and there's also a new element. They have a hands-on element where these 40 science educators who actually live on the train, they're all postgraduates in science. They actually sit with them and teach them and do different exercises in math and science. So they get to see, and they actually get to do this year.
The train stops at each station for 3 to 4 days, and young people have a chance to take part in the hands-on laboratory, where educators help them conduct experiments highlighting math and science principles. For some of these children, particularly from small towns in the farthest corners of India, This is a rare opportunity to learn beyond the four walls of their classroom. Seeing their reaction makes riding the rails worth it for educators like Raghav Pandya.
Fascinating experiments or sort of things, when they come to know, they feel, oh wow. So this wow factor we come to know, we come to see in their eyes.
So is this something that is kind of a recent phenomena, a real push to reach to the rural communities, not just the urban areas, for education?
Well, absolutely. Like any other country, in the big cities, you'll find a lot more schools, a lot of private schools. But in the more rural areas, you're just talking about basic infrastructure, school buildings, and the resources and the quality of teachers. It doesn't even come close. And then you look at the population of India. So there really is a need to provide resources. And this is one way to give students, like I said before, in very remote parts of India who maybe don't really have much more than a basic classroom to go to every day, to give them a chance to experience something else, something different.
Thanks to Aru for that. But Alex, it's interesting to talk about land-based moving classrooms, but did you know that there are also floating classrooms where kids also learn about science-related topics like marine biology?
Right, exactly, and those classrooms are on the water. And then in Pakistan, we've even seen a flying classroom, but it doesn't actually fly through the air. It's really just a bus traveling around to reach kids who don't have a school in their neighborhood. So really good work being done to try to get learning and get education out to kids who don't have access to it otherwise.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right, well, moving on to now another kind of mobile activity. Dragon boating is a team sport that has its roots in ancient China. Now, some breast cancer survivor groups have started to use the sport to rebuild their lives. VOA's June So caught up with a team on Washington's Potomac River, and she talked with me about it. We begin with the start of her report, narrated by Amy Katz.
1, 2, 3.
On a Saturday morning, a group of 20 women paddles in sync to the coach's call on the Anacostia River in Washington. They are members of Go Pink DC, a dragon boat racing team. Lydia Collins joined 5 years ago after she was diagnosed with breast cancer.
I love the team spirit, and I just love everything about it. It's like a floating support group on the water.
The paddlers are breast cancer survivors and their supporters.
So June, how did you find this story?
I just heard about Washington, D.C. Dragon Boat Festival, and I did some research. While I was doing research, I found this Go Pink DC Dragon Boat team, but they are not just an ordinary Dragon Boat team. They are breast cancer survivor teams.
What struck me is this description by one of the Go Pink DC team members of the group as being like a floating support group on the water. Can you describe, you were there with them, you spent some time with these women. What sense of camaraderie and sisterhood did you sense?
They all, most of them are breast cancer survivors, and some are supporters, their sisters or close friends just joined the team. And everybody has one common thing, breast cancer. So they start this journey with diagnosis of breast cancer. So everybody understands what they are going through, what have been through, like a surgery or chemotherapy or radiation, all this stuff. So they understand how hard to go through this all stages. So their understanding is higher than, more than any other people understand those people, the cancer patients.
Rhonda Hartzell receives chemotherapy treatment every 3 weeks.
It's hard, but I think you have to challenge yourself in life. This is something I look forward to. I get to be out here with my sisters and supporters, and they understand what I'm going through and they help motivate me. So it makes me stronger and it makes me feel better.
So let's talk about dragon boat racing itself. It's not a very well-known sport here in the U.S., and we've seen it on the rise, but not a lot of people know about it. So what is it about dragon boating that attracted these women?
They say it's very helpful physically and mentally because they twice a week they practice. They together Saturday and then 1 weekday evening, and most of the people come to Saturdays. And while they are doing this paddling, the motion of the paddling helps reduce their swelling of the arms. Many people, the breast cancer, they end up having this swelling on the arm. So this motion helps.
Well, when I'm paddling, it helps with my lymphedema, which is swelling of the lymphatic fluid. When you have a mastectomy, sometimes you wind up with this condition. We have many paddlers that wear compression sleeves.
Is there anything, if you were to say your main message with this story, what you hope that people take away from it?
Even though I think it's very hard to go through this treatment, but there's a way they can have some kind of support. And while they are doing this, they forge the friendship, and then they say their lives, they feel they rebuild their lives.
All right, and thanks again to VOA's June So for that story, which is really far from just a local phenomenon. It's estimated actually that there are as many as 400 breast cancer survivor dragon boating teams now around the world.
Well, moving back to the land for our next story, signs are important ways for businesses to advertise, and usually they're affixed to something. But there's another way to attract attention with a sign, and that's to spin it. In eye-catching ways, that is. It's a strategy that seems to work on the streets in the Washington area. Let's check that out.
Horatio Moreno has been spinning signs for 5 years.
There's a lot of money to be made in advertising, period.
The income is not the only reason Moreno loves his job.
I have the most fun doing what I'm doing. Like, I don't have to worry about having a boss yelling at me, like telling me to do my job better.
Moreno works for Arrow Advertising. Michael Patterson opened the company's Washington branch in 2001.
Here we are 12 years later in, 11 countries and 49 cities. We've hired thousands of sign spinners in the last 7 to 8 years.
To attract attention and traffic, sign spinners need to get noticed. And that requires learning a few tricks, as well as the basics of how to spin a sign while jumping and dancing.
You're going to pull the bottom border and you catch it. Begin.
Arrow Advertising offers classes to help high school students around the area master those skills. Most of the students are young men, but not all.
Sometimes they're like, no, the girl can't spin, but then I show them and then they're amazed.
Stephanie Amaya has been training for 7 months.
My cousins and my brothers, they started doing it around me, so I was interested in it and I wanted to learn.
If we do it too fast, no one can read the message. So our guys are actually trained to pause the sign at certain points to make sure that passing by cars can read the message.
Being dynamic and innovative, Patterson says, is the secret behind sign spinning as a growing trend in advertising. For writer Faiza El Masri, I'm Faith Lapidus, VOA News.
So I was a little bit inspired by this story, and Imran, I actually brought a sign with me so that you could try it out, try your hand at sign spinning. It's one of our VOA workplace signs. Okay. So Imran now is going to wow us with his sign spinning.
This is Alex's backup plan in case she loses this job. This is what she's gonna do, but I'm gonna help her train her.
He's gonna teach me.
So here it goes. I got it. See? Spinning sign expert here.
Might be a future for you in sign spinning.
For both of us.
We'll see. All right. Well, with that, we have now come to the end of our program. But on our next show, we will talk with a VOA correspondent in Cairo about what it's been like to cover Egypt's political turmoil.
We'll also hear about a woodworker whose unusual furniture is worthy of an art exhibit.
And don't forget to check us out on voanews.com, Facebook, and YouTube, where you can get accurate captions straight from our scripts by clicking on CC in the player window.
From all of us at On Assignment, thank you so much for watching. We'll catch you next week.